Part 1. I trusted my best friend with my deepest struggles about anxiety and family problems, but the next day I discovered she'd been sharing screenshots of my private messages in a group chat where everyone was laughing at me. I'm still shaking as I write this because I can't believe someone I trusted completely could betray me in such a cruel way. My closest friend just destroyed years of friendship by turning my most vulnerable moments into entertainment for other people, and I don't know how I'll ever trust anyone again. I'm 24F, and my friend Jessica is 25F. We've been best friends since college and have always been there for each other through everything. I thought we had the kind of friendship where we could share anything without judgment, and I've always felt safe opening up to her about my personal struggles. Jessica and I talk every day through text messages, and our conversations cover everything from work drama to family issues to dating problems. She's been my go-to person for advice and support, and I've always done the same for her when she needed someone to talk to. Over the past few months, I've been going through a really difficult time with anxiety and depression. My job has been incredibly stressful. My parents have been fighting constantly and might get divorced, and I've been struggling to maintain my mental health while dealing with all these pressures. Jessica knew about everything I was going through because I'd been confiding in her regularly about how overwhelmed I felt. She'd always seemed supportive and understanding, offering advice and encouragement when I was having particularly bad days. 2 weeks ago, I had one of the worst days I'd experienced in months. My anxiety was through the roof, I'd had a panic attack at work, and I'd gotten into a huge fight with my mom about my parents' marriage problems. I felt completely alone and desperate for someone to talk to. That evening I sent Jessica a long series of messages explaining everything that had happened and how scared I was about my mental health. I was completely honest about my anxiety symptoms, my fears about my family falling apart, and how hard it was for me to function normally. I told Jessica about specific panic attacks I'd been having, including embarrassing details about crying in public and having to leave social situations because I couldn't breathe. I shared things I'd never told anyone else because I trusted her completely and needed her support. I also opened up about my family situation, explaining how my parents' fighting was affecting me, and how guilty I felt for not being able to help them solve their problems. I shared private details about their marriage that I would never want other people to know. Jessica's responses seemed supportive and caring. She told me she was sorry I was going through such a hard time and that she was there for me whenever I needed to talk. She offered to call me if I wanted to talk instead of texting, and said she cared about me and wanted to help. Her messages made me feel better and less alone. I went to bed that night feeling grateful to have such a caring friend who I could trust with my deepest struggles. I thought Jessica understood how hard everything was for me and genuinely wanted to support me. The next day at work, one of my coworkers, Amanda, approached me with this weird expression on her face. She asked if I was okay and said she'd heard I was going through some stuff. I was confused because I hadn't told anyone at work about my personal problems. When I asked Amanda what she meant, she said she'd seen some messages in a group chat that made her concerned about me. She pulled out her phone and showed me screenshots that made my blood run cold. They were my private messages to Jessica from the night before. Amanda showed me a group chat with about 8 people from our extended friend circle, including some mutual friends and acquaintances I barely knew. Jessica had posted multiple screenshots of our private conversation with laughing emojis and sarcastic comments about my mental health struggles. I could see my own words about having panic attacks, crying at work, and feeling like I was falling apart, but now they were surrounded by Jessica's mocking commentary and other people's responses making fun of my anxiety and family problems. Jessica had captioned the screenshots with things like "Drama Queen strikes again" and "Someone needs attention tonight." Other people in the group chat were responding with eye-roll emojis and comments about how dramatic and needy I was being. Reading those messages felt like being punched in the stomach repeatedly. My most vulnerable and painful moments had been turned into entertainment for people who barely knew me. Jessica had violated my privacy in the cruelest possible way. But what made it even worse was seeing how the other people in the group chat were responding to Jessica's betrayal. Instead of telling her it was wrong to share private messages, they were joining in and making their own cruel comments about my mental health. One person wrote about how I was always complaining about something and needed to get over myself. Another made jokes about my anxiety symptoms and suggested I was just being dramatic for attention. They were treating my genuine struggles like they were funny stories rather than real pain. Amanda said she'd left the group chat after seeing the messages because she thought what Jessica was doing was horrible. She said she'd only shown me because she thought I deserved to know what was happening and who Jessica really was. I thanked Amanda for telling me, but I was so shocked and hurt that I could barely process what I'd learned. The person I trusted most in the world had taken my pain and used it to entertain other people while portraying me as a pathetic attention seeker. I spent the rest of the workday in a daze trying to focus on my tasks while feeling completely betrayed and humiliated. I kept thinking about all the private things I'd shared with Jessica over the years and wondering if she'd been sharing those too. When I got home that evening, I had several missed calls and texts from Jessica asking about my day and making normal conversation like nothing had happened. She was acting like the same supportive friend she'd always been, with no indication that she just violated my trust in the most hurtful way possible. I didn't know how to respond to Jessica's messages, because I couldn't understand how someone could be so cruel to a friend who was struggling. I felt like I'd been living in a fantasy where I thought our friendship was real, but Jessica had apparently been viewing me as entertainment. The betrayal was made worse by the timing. Jessica had shared my messages right after I'd had one of my worst days and had reached out to her for support. She'd taken my moment of greatest vulnerability and used it to mock me behind my back. I realized that I'd been completely wrong about who Jessica was as a person. Someone who could screenshot private messages about mental health struggles and share them for laughs wasn't someone who cared about me or understood what real friendship meant.